recorded April 3rd, 2024. Good afternoon, Rod. How are you doing, sir?
I am doing fairly well. Um, you see, I have my hoodie on. I was wearing a t-shirt on Monday's show, but a hoodie today because we had some serious storms. Well, not as serious as they predicted, but we had some storms that came through yesterday that we were all super fearful for because weather people obviously have to justify their jobs, so they create these, you know, huge storms that will come through, and then it turns out to be nothing. But it is colder today. It actually snowed today after warm weather, warm temperatures yesterday. Um, but I have something I want to show you, and
Show
I
me.
think other people will actually be interested. I just finished this right before the show, and I wanted to, since it is Copilot for Security Partners Month. So here's something. I'll show you what this looks like. I today, so I you can create your own plugins, right? Custom
Yeah,
plugins for Copilot
yeah.
for Security.
hmm
And I know everybody's trying to do whatever, but you can create them for KQL and it's super easy. You just use your KQL queries. There's a specific format, which I learned very quickly and had to get that correct. But now I have one. I have a plugin that goes and checks my watch list for my trusted users in Microsoft Sentinel. And so if an incident comes up, I can go in Copilot for Security and say, hey, give me a summary about this incident, and do any of these entities show up in my trusted users list or not? And so it will automatically check my trusted users list that I'm maintaining in Microsoft Sentinel. And of course, the plugin is out there. It's open source. I've shared it. Anybody can go in, and it doesn't work just for trusted users list, but it works for any watch list. You can just adjust this YAML file to any watch list, because I even maintain like all of the Azure service IP lists, right? So if an IP address comes through that someone was accessing, I can compare it to what I've collected for those Azure services, and I'm like, oh, that's no big deal. They're just using PowerShell in the cloud or whatever, right? So pretty cool.
Yeah, because you threw me off when you were talking about trusted user list. I was like, okay, what is this feature? But you named your watch list. Okay, I'm
Yep.
like,
Yep.
and we all know that watch lists are Frank's favorite feature in Sentinel, right? Watch list. I haven't touched a watch list in 6 months.
No.
What I do need to touch is a conformed headset. But to all our viewers and everything, next week I'll have my setup more professional. I got the whole Yeti boom and all that other stuff. I just got to get it mounted because these things are driving me crazy. So you were saying, and we're not going to get into the whole technical detail about it. I think we actually are going to let the fever die down about security copilot and all these things. But we've done a couple sessions, and I tell everybody, go do the base learnings at Microsoft, and then
Yeah.
experienced people in IT particularly um, tend to have a bad habit. I'm one of them, that we build a house and then we build the foundation, meaning we go directly to the 400 level expertise stuff and try to figure out what it is rather than just start at 100 and build a foundation up. So one of the things I've learned is go through the 100 and the 200 and the 300. It's not a lost time effort because it does build upon itself. So as I'm going through and really learning about the Copilot stuff, I'm not learning about the user side of it. I'm learning about how do you build effective prompts. What are you doing for the plugins and things like that? Because I want to see what the value add to be able to do some of these things are. So, but before we leave here, you said a YAML list. So as that we don't confuse our listeners, are the plugins created in YAML or what
Either
syntax?
either YAML or JSON. So either one.
I'm familiar with YAML by virtue of the SANS course I'm taking, right? Because you use
Yeah.
it for IOCs, right? So I'm like, oh, this makes sense to me. I'm reading this. And if you're looking at IOC build indicators, if we're talking about threat hunting and stuff and threat detection, YAML is a format that you can help you write IOCs, or you can use sticks. And I think it's one called Open IOC. I don't know if they're real prevalent anymore, right? Um, but yeah, very cool. I'm gonna do some deep diving in here and that. But did you since it's Wednesday? and my time is all off. Did you do anything interesting other than write this thing?
I'm super geeky. That was super interesting to me. So, anything other than that interesting? What is today? It is Wednesday. Yeah, I had a couple meetings. Nothing super important. I did find out that I will be at Build the end of May. I hadn't originally intended to do that, but we're working on a thing called Copilot College. And so developing a lot of content around Copilot for security and just security in general for our copilots for developers and stuff. That we're going to release something super cool at Microsoft Build, and I'll be there to help bring it into the world.
Yeah, I'm interested in that. You know, I like helping you out with these side stretch projects, even though they're not the core responsibility of me at work. I generally talk to my manager or director and say, "Hey, man, this this is force multiplying. Maybe help out," and I get to learn at the same time. So maybe some budget left. Let's talk about that and see it. But something else, since you said that today, I don't know if you got my machine bugged or not. I was going through some Copilot stuff, and it popped up, and I generally just don't look at links, but this came up. And so let me see here. Whenever I do this, I keep forgetting. I got a gazillion screens, but I never learn how to
Yep.
multitask.
And the
And
funny thing is, the ones behind you, they're always on
mhm.
the same screen.
Yeah, so anybody that thinks that they can just go look at my stuff and see what I'm doing, that doesn't work. So can you guys see my screen?
Oh yeah,
So yeah, so this Copilot Lab thing, and this is not Copilot for security, this is Copilot. But if you learn the fundamentals and the base languages and the nuances of a Copilot, the way that it is, and realize that Copilot is a marketing term for a specific set of functions of underlying technology, it's Copilot Lab. So you learn base stuff about, what's a prompt and use the Copilot and such. So because I have the Copilot in my lab, the collaboration and the other ones, I got this. And remember when we did the Microsoft Learn, people were like, is there a lab for this stuff? So this
yeah,
doesn't quite fit the definition of a lab, but it's interesting to come in and you can see that this Copilot lab is basically taking some canned stuff and really just talking about, how these things work across these productivity products, right? And
yeah.
so this one vexed me forever. Couldn't figure out how to get the OneNote to go until I uninstalled the old version, went with the cloud version, and it started
Oh
working.
yeah, I
And
remember
then
that discussion. Yeah.
and then once I put the old client back on the machine, then it started working. I'm like, okay, so no big deal.
That's essentially rebooting the PC is when you
Yeah, so I'll put that
uninstall
in
reboot.
there. I put it into the chat notes. So I did that, and then
Yeah.
what else did I do? I'm going to do a customer connection program, fireside chat, end of the month with one of our guests from Women in Cyber Month, Ray Wolfram. So coming up with a theme, and I think I'm going to use the same theme for a couple of places that you and I have submitted paper to come in and present at an event in Florida. And then I think I'm going to keep building upon it because I think it has great use in some of the other venues like presenting at a B-side. I wish I had thought about this prior to RSA, but they're closed to papers now. And I'll run it by you how threat hunters can't just operate in a vacuum and assume even if you're proactive that's going to be sufficient. So I'll share with our listeners. And I started writing on it today, and I had one of the little taglines is path versus wrath, and I'll make no context to anybody, but we'll talk about it. Um, what else did I do? Oh, finally, in my lab, the unified sock thing showed up. So it's part of the show notes. I see it in my tenant now, where you can.
Oh, I did that too. I thought that was super interesting. Did you enable it in yours? Because you have to change access for the individual to contributor and user administrator to even be able to enable that within your Defender.
Yeah. So I actually had to see once again. Senior people see it, go directly to how to, and then read the prerequisites. Then I had to go back and read the prerequisites. It's like,
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we've gotten good at figuring out that most customers will do that. So when I started trying to enable it, it said, "Hey, there was a warning said, nope, you can't do it because you need to go back and adjust these user
Well,
settings.
the first warning I got said, hey, you can't do it because you don't have the XDR connector enabled. And I
Oh,
went,
oh,
and I'm like,
yeah,
yes, I do. But I haven't really been in my lab in a while, so a lot of those legacy, connectors and stuff,
yeah,
I'm going to turn them all off. I'm actually going to disconnect them, and I think I'm just going to blow my workspace away, or I may keep the workspace for reference, but I think I am going to disconnect all the Sentinel input to it and just set it to the side and create a net new workspace for my lab because some stuff I want to try. And then I want to see, um, I'll connect everything back into it. And then, God, it's been so long since you and I done some Sentinel, right? Can I reference that other workspace with a join or union or whatever the consideration context is if it's not one of connected to Sentinel, right? So I don't need the stuff in it. I'm gonna create something net new, and I got to get a lot of these old solutions out of here, man. So that's what I've been working on. Um, and I had a couple things for the show notes. Let me see what I put in here for the show. Stuff for the podcast. What did I get here? Let me see. Oh, here it is. Um, EDR telemetry. So someone put together an interesting post that takes all of the current major player EDRs and talking about the telemetry that they feed into your SIM of choice or into the port of choice. So they added some ones. I didn't realize semantic was still a thing. So they're out there. And I'll get this out and share it.
yeah.
And it was one more interesting one that I had that I pulled from one of the guys I absolutely love. His post is I think it's Steve Lim, and of course I don't have it really available. Let me look in my
Yeah, he
inbox here.
posts most of his stuff to LinkedIn, which is super interesting. It's hard to find unless you're looking for Steve a lot of the time. So
I just believe it or not, I can set up an alert so that when I see a LinkedIn post coming to Outlook, it'll
yeah.
search his. You can use Copilot and say if you see his name in here,
Oh, okay, yeah.
let me know and I'll go follow him. But I can't find it now that I'm live. One last thing I got is um
Who knew
I got
that
that
Copilot could be used as a stalker's tool?
yeah, Copilot for stalkers.
Yep.
There you go, CFS. It's all the worst, right?
We've
And
rebranded it
we
already.
rebranded. And then I got the infamous email yesterday at 12:39 p.m. Get started with Copilot for security. So obviously in my lab, and as they
Yeah.
go to the setup guide. So I'm actually going to just go through the guide, set up your team, assign roles, watch the how-to videos, build your expertise, deepen your knowledge, do to learn, access Copilot, begin familiarizing yourself with Copilot, and help your team do such as compiling reports. And you and I sort of talked about SCUs today and how am I actually going to pay for this stuff. I actually got a few dollars, so
Yeah.
um, I'm
Well,
gonna
and
ask
there's
for.
some ways we don't have to talk about it tonight. There's some ways to minimize your costs. I know product team hates me saying that, but yeah, it's
Well, the
kind of
product team
thing.
hated it when
Yeah.
we did it for Sentinel. Like, hey, we got to figure out how to minimize the cost when you're ingesting these logs, and eventually that became the way. And then people end up ingesting more later because they changed what they were eating. So they stopped eating this thing and ate more of the other thing, and so eventually you get back to it, right? Bad analogy. Meaning they started bringing in more logs that had greater security uh, fidelity. So instead of operational logs, they end up spending more anyway. They're like, oh yeah, I don't need that log, but I definitely need twice as many as these logs coming in. So it eventually works itself out. But I think that's all that we got.
Well, we
Um,
do. This is kind of a super special month, right? This is partner month. And we had James Key on Monday, and that was an awesome discussion. And James actually loved being on so much, he wants to come back. So we're going to have to do that here shortly, here in the near future. But our very first partner, this is our very first partner episode. And we have actually a favorite. We have one of, previous show favorites back on.
mhm.
This organization, this company was on year and a half, I forget. Well,
He got it
but
right a year and a half ago. Yeah.
Yeah, for Microsoft Sentinel stuff, for the partnership that they have with Microsoft Sentinel, and now they're doing something with Copilot for security. Imagine that.
Hey, it's Mike from Tanium.
Hey
What's
guys,
going on? Hey, Mike, what's up, man?
good to be back. It's been a while.
It's good to have you back. Thanks for agreeing to come on the show and kick off this second annual partner month for the Microsoft Security Insights Pod Show, a podcast, a part, whatever you want to do it. So I, it sounds like you got a lot to tell us today. So I know we sort of got a little bit of a late start and consumed some SEUs. Show consumption units, SCUs.
Yeah, it's good.
Show consumption units. So before we
Yes.
burn through our SCU for the show, you want to introduce yourself to our new listeners? I think the listeners from last year actually know who you are and who your company is. But hey, not for me to tell your story. It's your story to tell.
All right. Yeah, I appreciate that. So, Mike Fiorina, my official title is the Field CIO of our Microsoft partnership here at Tanium, which is a fancy way of saying I'm the global field technical lead for our Microsoft integrations. I'm a part of the engineering organization, really in a strategy role. So I spend all day, every day talking about Microsoft and Tanium and showing what we're doing and talking about why we're doing it and what the benefits are to customers. It's been pretty interesting for the past couple of years as we've really ramped up a lot of our integrations, and the Copilot stuff is definitely grabbing everybody's attention and everybody's running with it. And we're pretty excited to be a part of the launch this week.
So with all the fanfare that's obviously coming out of Microsoft, was the fanfare synonymous? Was it bated breath? Because if you have something ready to go, you can't go, you know, until the mothership takes off, right? And then all the little alien ships come out. So this is a big deal for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were offered the opportunity to participate in the partner private preview program back in the fall, and we dove in head first. We had a team of rockstar developers and product managers roll up their sleeves, get right in. We had a prototype proof of concept available for Ignite that was dropping a lot of jaws at that conference as well as our own, and we've been continuing to kind of iterate and develop it over the past few months so that we were ready to rock and roll the minute GA hit. So we're in the plugin list. It was a little bit of a spoiler there. Rod pulled that up earlier, but if you go in Copilot and you pull up the list of plugins, Tanium's right there.
Oh, did
Yes.
I? Yeah, I should have hovered there. I'm sorry. You'll have to do a better job than I do.
No worries.
So, as with Copilot, I think people are sort of past the point of talk, and more people want to see action. And as I understand it, you have something to show. So, we want to get into the good. We want to see. The people want to know. We want to see.
Well, and here let's kind of set the base. Let's set the stage for what you're going to talk about, because historically, when you think about Copilot for security, and I think what customers are doing since GA and even the EAP folks, it's historically been, okay, I'm going to ask it questions or direct it to do things, and it's going to respond in a certain way. It's going to respond in, something that is understandable. But in that respect, I think what's important to kind of highlight here is that Tanium does something a little bit extra. You do something different, right? Not only do you tie back into yours, but I get this question all the time, and Edward always says it's not autopilot, it's Copilot. But in some respects, I think Tanium is doing some things here to make it almost autopilot in some ways, right?
Well, I think that's our goal, is really to
Yeah.
introduce automation and have that be more adopted by the masses, particularly when it comes to security use cases. Yeah, it was funny actually when the first kind of marketing messages came out about Copilot for security back in, I don't know, September, October last year, whatever it was. I think the taglines were like natural language query and machine speed, kind of a couple of the key factors, which really fits well with Tanium. We felt like that was a perfect marriage because we've been speaking kind of those same terms for a while now, not necessarily with the AI-driven natural language query, but that's kind of what Tanium is all about, the ability to step up to our console, ask a question, and get real-time information right away. And so that being able to bring that into the Copilot interface and that whole platform that you developed there, we thought was perfect for us. And we're kind of excited to show you what we've built, and excited to show you kind of where we're thinking to take this above and beyond where we're at today.
Excited to hear it and see it.
Right.
I've not seen your demo, so I'm actually super excited myself. So.
All right. So I think I'll probably just start with a little refresher about what Tanium is, just to show you the kind of the console and talk through that, so you can kind of understand what the foundation is, and so that everybody, if this is their first opportunity to hear about Tanium, and then I have a video demonstration, and then we can walk through some live scenarios as well.
Great.
All right.
There it comes. I see it. Here we go.
All right.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So this is the Tanium console. And here at Tanium, we really talk about visibility and control at speed and scale. So our differentiator is that you can effectively use Tanium to manage a diverse endpoint environment, and endpoints are desktop operating systems going back to Windows 7, Windows Server going back to 2008 R2, everything above and beyond that, with Linux, AX, Solaris, Mac OS support, and you do it all under a single umbrella for traditional kind of cybersecurity hygiene use cases that more are in the kind of traditionally operation side of the house, and then also pivoting over into the security arena as well, all from a single kind of overarching management umbrella and framework. And so talking about the whole natural language query element of it. So this is something that has been in the product since day one, the ability to step up to the console and say, hey, I want to get some information about my environment. So I can start typing and it'll start to interpret what I'm looking for. And so in this case, I said, hey, get a running process list from all machines. And this is actually getting running processes from every single online device in the environment right now. I'm a Microsoft guy. I'm going to go ahead and say, let's filter this by Windows. And so you can see right away within less than 30 seconds for over 1,000 machines, and this scales up to the biggest, baddest environments in the world with 500,000 or 1 million machines all over the globe. You have insights into what's going on. So a security practitioner can go in here and say like, hey, I want to look at a list of all the processes, and maybe they're just kind of poking around and say, well, let's look at the ones that are the outliers. Like, all right, where do I have a single instance of an executable running in my environment or something like that? And maybe they see something that indicates it's this might be something I want to keep an eye on, or maybe I want to take action on it, which I think is the real value here. Like, all right, I've got 2 instances of Java running in this environment. Maybe in this case, you know what? I don't trust whatever's going on here. It's very easy for me to just go ahead and say, kill this process. And then within a couple clicks, the process is going to be blasted off of any machine that is currently running on. We can run it on a recurring basis in case we were worried about it popping back up. And there's a lot of different kind of flexible use cases that are unlocked with this kind of thing. So on installing software, killing processes, stopping services, you name it, any of that would be available from this interface. So the idea being like, hey, actionable data at global scale in real time, regardless of what type of device we're talking about. So that's kind of the crux of Tanium, and we've wrapped a lot of that foundational capability into a bunch of purpose-built modules that are designed to help customers with their configuration compliance, their vulnerability management, their ability to respond to incidents. It's really a tool that's got a lot of different facets and use cases associated with it, but we really are designing it more and more going forward to lay on top of Microsoft-centric solutions. So we have a lot of standalone value, but for customers that are using Defender for Endpoint and Sentinel and Intune and other things, we're really investing in kind of those complementary areas where we think there's an opportunity to introduce kind of real-time data, funnel those kind of things into the Microsoft solutions wherever possible, make it a really kind of native integration so that oftentimes you're going to be able to stay in one UI or the other and take advantage of both of our strengths. So that's kind of the vision here.
So I see this, and just kind of iterate here, is that this is a management tool, right? But also managing devices and workstations, endpoints, but also security of those things, patching and all the security pieces of that. So from my perspective, and knowing what I know and what I think I know about AI or the LLMs and stuff like that, you're collecting a lot of data that is probably super important to somebody somewhere, right?
Yeah, I think it's really the access that is the important part. So we try not to collect too much. I think we leave it where it is, and then we pull it back when we need it more often than not. And so I think we view our platform as being kind of an endless source of telemetry for whatever purpose you want to use it for, whether it's security use cases or analytics. And I think the world is your oyster. But effectively, anything that is visible to the operating system, we can pull that information within seconds across every device that's out there. So that's the power of it.
Very cool. Yep.
Yeah. All right.
It seems like you guys were sort of prepared for this whole Copilot thing because you have very similar capabilities out of the thing, right? And
exactly.
I know that, yeah. So cool. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exactly kind of what we were thinking as soon as we saw and heard what you guys had to say about the vision for what was then Security Copilot and now Copilot for Security. We thought this is perfect. Let's invest in this. And so it's, basically top down from the senior leadership of the company is all on board with this. Everybody at Tanium is really excited. It's one of the more kind of interesting areas that we're investing in right now. So yeah, and we're just getting started. Really, is the kind of cool thing.
Yeah. Well, I think we're all kind of working together. We're all at that starting point, I think. So that's why it's super important. I love the partner program and being able to have kind of this extensible platform where you can, update constantly. So
Definitely. All right, so I'm going to try to share a video now, and I feel like a boomer because I feel like every time I try to share a video, it doesn't work the way I expect, but let's give this a try.
it is technology after all.
Yeah.
It changes constantly and you never know where that other button is or whatever. So, yeah.
Been alerted about an unusual amount of traffic coming from a device on the network. Let's take a closer look as our security analyst uses Copilot and Tanium to guide them through responding to the issue. Copilot provides guidance to our analysts that they should find the device generating the traffic and look for any patterns occurring related to the network traffic. If necessary, an incident response plan should get started. Let's ask Copilot to guide the analyst through using Tanium to help research this alert. Copilot responds back that Tanium has found a device on the network that has been connecting to the remote IP address. Additionally, we can now see information about the network patterns, the device that is originating the traffic, the process responsible, and the user who initiated it. Copilot advises our analyst to consider some additional next steps, including researching the suspicious process and investigating the user that has been identified. Our analyst asks Copilot to show us the details about the suspicious process. Based on the Tanium output, we can see that the updater.exe process is being launched by a scheduled task called app update. Next, let's ask Copilot if this process is known to be malicious. Copilot returns the process's hash and advises us to search a threat intelligence platform for more information. Microsoft Defender Threat Intelligence is already integrated with Copilot. Let's ask Copilot to check it for us. Defender Threat Intelligence responds that this is an unknown process and recommends that we continue to investigate the behavior of the process for any signs of suspicious activity. We ask Copilot if this process has been seen anywhere else in the environment. Since Tanium can query endpoints in real time across the enterprise, Copilot will ask Tanium to enrich its current understanding of the incident with real-time data from every endpoint that may be potentially impacted. It appears that the updater.exe process is isolated to this single Windows endpoint. As we narrow the scope of the incident using Copilot's guidance, we can pivot directly into Tanium to continue the analysis. The analyst discovers that a scheduled task named App Update was created to run this updater file at a predetermined time. Further investigation into the process reveals file creation activities and unauthorized network communications with the suspicious IP. Child processes are examined, indicating attempts to gather information from the endpoint, including details about the installed antivirus software. The analysis continues with the discovery of another process, xcopy.exe, which duplicates and renames the suspicious file. The analyst is unfamiliar with the subsequent mofcomp process and returns to Copilot for clarification. To ensure context is maintained, our analyst explains to Copilot what they just learned in Tanium about the remote destination, the script that was downloaded, and the reconnaissance actions it performs. They then ask Copilot for more information about the MOF script that was found. Copilot explains that the managed object format is used to manage Windows system settings. Copilot also assists in analyzing the MOF script associated with the suspicious process, indicating that it could establish network persistence through Windows management instrumentation and potentially allow for continued unauthorized access or control. At this point, we are confident this is malicious behavior and it's now time to respond. We would resolve the issue by using Tanium to quarantine the endpoint and remediate the malicious files. In addition to addressing the device in question, we would also push an enterprise-wide firewall policy to block access to the malicious IP address. By leveraging the capabilities of Microsoft Copilot for Security, with Tanium's converged endpoint management platform, we were able to quickly and efficiently guide the analysts through their investigation, ultimately helping to decrease the mean time to resolution for our customer. For additional information about Tanium and Copilot for Security, please contact your local Tanium representative.
Well, I guess you would be our local Tanium representative. So
that actually wasn't bad. Very good, and it made me think about something. That is very resonant to me now because once again, I know our listeners are tired of hearing about what course I'm messing with, which is actually advanced forensics. That series of actions is applicable and appropriate. I would have done it possibly two other ways, but yes, that is how you would have done it. What I thought your product was going to do was going to say, and it looks like it did. It examined the hash, but it didn't really. It used MDTI to examine the hash. Okay, so it didn't have to go out and use an external non-Microsoft source to use a product. I suspect that it could have looked at virus total or,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, we have support for reputation services as well.
Oh, okay, very cool. Yeah, I looked at it and it definitely is fast to be able to go get it done. But I looked at it and said, yep, I do want that way. And then, but did your product show? Was that a what's the term? I can't even think of the term. But was that particular file or that executable or that process isolated to that particular one machine, or did you go out and look and see if it was running across multiple entities?
So that's the idea that we did go out and look to see if it was running anywhere. I know it went through pretty fast, but the idea being, yeah, it would be very easy to see with Tanium is that process that we suspect is malicious running anywhere else, and we could search thousands of machines in seconds and pull back that info.
Hmm. That's the power of it right there. You already have the operational posture of those machine from a day-to-day standpoint, and you have a known good because you can look at it and say, 3 days ago this process didn't exist on this machine, and now why is it only running against this machine, and it's not a unilateral, process. That's really slick. I like that. All right, all right.
Yeah.
So
I would suggest that video is also a little bit older. You guys need to update that because I think you can do more than that now, right?
Well, that was just one kind of showcase that we
Yeah.
had built recently. So when we did it originally back for Ignite, the Copilot ecosystem was wide open for doing remediations from within Copilot and the interface there. And I think it was probably a good decision for the product team to pull back the reins on that a little bit and say, you know what, this first iteration of Copilot is going to be effectively read-only. So you have the ability to gather information you want, but affecting change is going to be done outside of Copilot. And so we can all kind of establish a level of trust with AI and the kind of use cases, and nobody's worrying too much about Skynet before we start to really let it loose.
Yeah.
it was pretty. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You isolated the IP address for the C2. I probably would have looked at the other rather than firewall rule, and not the best, really appropriate actions. I was sort of just looked at it and say, okay, show me where else this is actually running, and took a deeper inspection on the MOF file, because a lot of times when you have isolated that machine, you just tip me off as an adversary.
Yep.
Right. But that's why you still need humans.
Mhm.
That's why you need humans to come in and say, yep, do that, but don't do it right away and be able to do it. Because if you talk to any forensic person or investigator, they're going to go, unless the blast rate is super detrimental to continue to run, or there are actual nefarious actions that are occurring that could make this worse, you sort of just, there are ways to mask the ability that you've tipped off that person. Because if you are ATP and I see that thing's there, now I start looking at remote IP establishment that seems to be abnormal across, because I'm going to put more than one persistent mechanism in if I'm breaking in, right, and do it that way. But man, that's pretty slick. All right, all right. So when you guys did this, how did you get your head around this? What was the skill set, not the programming skill set? What was the skill set that you utilized to be able to come up with these responses for it? Because someone had to come in and say, hey, this is the way you go about this business to teach your product.
Yeah, I think we combined different groups with different levels of expertise. So we had a lot of folks that were pretty good in the whole AI, LLM side of the equation. And then we had a team of security practitioners who are the best of the best in Tanium and helping customers through security incidents. And so they came to the table and said, okay, this is what we should try to build, and this is what we should try to showcase. And so that was kind of the origin of this video was around that. So the ability to combine both kind of product development with kind of wanting to show what we can do, and then combine it with some of the strengths of Microsoft Microsoft, like MDTI and things like that, to show how compelling the solution could be end to end, using Tanium data with Microsoft solutions as well, and other third-party solutions as part of the equation too. So I think we're just getting started. Really, I think this was just, we wanted to see what we could build and do it in a relatively short period of time, and there's going to be a lot of iterations related to how we do skill matching and things like that, and interpreting like, okay, exactly what data we want to make available in the Copilot interface, and where does it not make sense, because we can pull up many thousands of lines of information, and it's not always going to be what you want to work within Copilot. And so it's kind of a little bit of a balance of figuring out like what should be available from within Copilot and make it easy for maybe a junior SOC analyst to use versus what should a tier 3 SOC person want access to, things like that.
Yeah, I just want to show this real quick. If people are interested in this, something I worked with Tanium a few months ago. I'm sure we need to update this and put some more stuff in here. Here's some general prompts and some general ways that you can utilize that Tanium plugin. There's different synonyms: list, show me, the endpoints, the devices, and the computers. So here's a bunch of, you have the Tanium plugin and you have Tanium and you need to enable it. Here's some things that you can utilize to check out. So.
Yep. And those, I like these very deliberate prompts, right? Some people think that the shorter the prompt and the more efficient it is, but when you're asking it for something, I think the more descriptive that you are asking what your product and the Copilot product to do benefits its ability to come back and give you a more direct answer, right? Because one of the things we were talking about is don't ask any Copilot, what do you think? Right? Because now you know, how do you feel? Those type of things, right? If you were, it, if that's going to befuddle a human being, what you think is going to do to a compute model for LLMs, right? So that prompt engineer thing, for those who are looking for a career enhancement, become prompt engineers, prompt architects, yeah, plugin architects, and we'll go that route. So with this, how do you go about, and don't give away secret sauce, how do you go about innovation? Because everybody's trying. So what does the innovation look like?
Yeah, I mean, I don't throw around the word unique very lightly, but I think we do have a unique architecture. So that what allows us to capture and affect change, capture data in real time and affect change broadly in real time is really what makes Tanium different. And so we're looking at ways to use that architecture and that unique capability for these kind of use cases, and incorporating it in these kind of solutions and tools to make it much more powerful for users of Copilot, and to open up, potential use cases that maybe we're not even thinking of now. But the ability to say like, hey, we get a lot of information from Defend MDE as our EDR. But in this moment, if I need to know, like, is there anybody currently actually have a connection to this nefarious IP address, Tanium can give you that information, and we can tell you across every device in a massive global environment really quickly. Same thing for the running process example I showed. And then the ability to really, I think there's this vision of the automated endpoint management that we're trying to go towards as a company, and the ability to ensure that both from a hygiene standpoint and a response standpoint, like how much automation can we introduce into the world to make life easier for everybody. And there's a balance. You don't want to have too many things automated too readily, because there's got to be controls and guardrails around it all. But the more we can do in that front to take the kind of the onerous tasks off of people's plates of like, all right, every month I got to go click these checkboxes to patch these systems, and I got to, look at these configuration policies and whatever else you have to do to make sure your environment is as secure as possible. How much of that can we just truly automate so that it's more or less hands-free? And then the ability to do so, and then helping customers really bridge the gap between security and operations. So it's one thing for a security team to say, hey, I've got this list of vulnerabilities I need my operations team to fix. I'm going to throw it to the fence and say, you guys go patch the systems or do whatever you need to do. Can we make it so that it's a more streamlined approach to that kind of thing? So like in the case of the running process, it would be under a security practitioner's purview to kill a process or stop a service, probably, right? But what if they had to install a patch because of a 0 day, or uninstall a piece of software because of that 0 day? Can we make that easier? And in Tanium, you definitely can. It's more about the process internally at a company to be able to say, like, can we enable our security practitioners in the event of an emergency to just go ahead and hit the big red button, which is Tanium. So that's kind of the vision, I think.
Yeah, that's definitely your superpower, being able to say divisive decision right now. Hey, we have 94% percent certainty that this is a bad thing, and now rather than having to go and figure out how to do a remediation, effort, you already tagged into the life cycle of the device, right? Like literally is click, and the speed of the wire is how you can get your stuff. I've seen it in action, so I'm pretty impressed with that. I'm not as heavy as Tanium as I used to be back in the day, but this is pretty slick because you're doing something that by virtue of the customer that's consuming your product all up with the addition of Copilot is that some other partners don't. They have an overlay to look at your alerts, incidents, and EDR, but they don't have the endpoint management piece. They're just looking at the telemetry coming in. What are they going to go tell you to do? Go to WUS and go do this, right? Or go to Intune and do this. So that's more work to do when I can just go to your product and yeah, press the button. Let's go ahead and kill these services. That way, if someone's doing DLL hollowing, DLL side loading, and everything, and you kill that fileless malware because it's residing in memory, right? So when you kill the process, they have to come back. And if you do that across multiple machines, even if you missed it, you'll see those C2 requests come back out, and now you've identified the other machines that you didn't catch the first time because everybody's trying to talk again, and you do it that way. That's pretty cool. That's all right there. Noodle said, but logic apps from Copilot for security, how? I know what you're saying, Noodle. What you asking?
He asked me about that earlier. We'll talk about that. And Noodle, should we talk? Well, no, we don't. Noodle will actually join Microsoft shortly, so he can answer his own questions then.
Did Noodle want everybody to know that he's joining Microsoft shortly?
Too late.
Oh man, when they call Rod Mr. Anti-NDA, they're not playing around, right?
We have a few Tanium fans in the audience
Oh, yeah.
today. That's
And if you impress Noodle, you impress Noodle. They have a top training portal, but you need to be a business CX. So, all right, become a business CX and you're good.
You had a live demo that you wanted to show us, right, Mike?
Yeah, let's see if we can work through that here. One moment.
Always
Right
love
window.
live demos. They're the best.
Yeah.
Because you never know. You never know what's going to happen at that point. Yeah.
This is
I
true.
did notice when you had the screen on, we had it on just a little bit earlier, you were pulling from my sessions. And that's the first thing that I ever do is pull from my sessions so I don't have to waste SCUs. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and for demo purposes, sometimes it's good to have these at least as a backstop, just to make sure that it's all going to behave the way you expect it to and give you the right information. So, a couple of the things that also make Tanium unique is just the types of telemetry and artifacts that we can capture. So the ability for, we're really very fast and we're very flexible as well. And then so like in the case of like Log4j or OpenSSL, so I'll just go ahead and take this question and modify it for Log4j and we'll see what happens here. So we can see those open source libraries that are sitting on customer endpoints and we can crack them open and if they're in jar files. And so Tanium customers, when Log4j hit, we're in pretty good shape as far as determining where their vulnerabilities were and that kind of thing. A lot of other folks might have struggled with it a lot. So if I go ahead and ask this question, and I'm saying, we're directing it to use Tanium. Sometimes that can be the best approach. As we sort of get some more experience with the LLM and how it handles matching and using the right plugins and things like that, we're going to optimize this a lot. But just to make sure that it's using Tanium, we're going to say, hey, tell me the number of endpoints that have a software package for Log4j on the device. I'm being polite here because you never know what happens with AI in the future. And it's going to go out there and it's going to take a look at everything that we've already captured in the environment. We kind of pre-index every local file system where we have that capability. So in the case of these open source libraries or in the next supply chain vulnerability, if you're looking for a signed DLL, it's very easy for Tanium to return that information in just a couple of seconds. And so here we can see it's going through. It chose Tanium as the plugin based on what we provided as input in the prompt. It's asking the question.
Should have implemented more SCUs for this demo.
Yes.
And when I say that, that's show compute units, right?
Show compute units.
Yep.
No,
show consumption units. There you go.
Consumption units.
Right. All
There you
right,
go.
and so in less than a minute, we had a full this information dumped in here. So we got certain Log4j versions sitting on these endpoints, and kind of one of the neat things about this as well is that we, because we can't remediate directly within Copilot, we want to still give people the potential ability to do that with Tanium. Then I can go ahead and click this button, and then I'm not sure if this is going to reflect in the. I gotta switch my tab
Oh, in the
here.
demo screen, yeah.
hang
Yeah, it
on.
pop windows on you.
It popped into another tab. And then it keeps the context of where I was and what question I was asking. And so, oh, it's making a liar out of me. All right, let's try this again.
I feel pretty awesome. I got to help with your demo just by selecting screens, but yeah. Oh, I guess I didn't do a very good job that time.
Hang on. All right, here's what popped up. So it actually takes the question that effectively populated into Copilot and said, all right, I'm going to pivot you directly over into Tanium. And so at this point now, we're in the Tanium interface, and then we can take action potentially on these things. So one of the other things that I was looking at and was the ability to uninstall software via this interface. So, with a open source library, this might be more along the lines of, hey, I want to quarantine these devices if they're vulnerable or been exploited, or I want to delete the libraries themselves, but who knows what impact that could have on business applications. But what about in the case of, say, I'll pick on Silverlight. So I was just poking through like, hey, what would be a good question to ask of the environment here? So if I pivot back into
Silverlight's still a thing?
yeah, I know. I was surprised it was still out there.
Yeah.
Then I can say, hey, using Tanium, show me endpoints that have Silverlight application installed, and I'm just going to say, please include the Tanium question URL.
Silverlight. Oh my goodness, haven't heard that word ever.
I know,
right?
In a minute. Yeah.
I figured it was safe to pick on Silverlight. Nobody cares about it anymore, right?
Yep. Silverlight. What else? Mesh, which I think actually is something else now. But
how about Adobe Flash?
Adobe Flash, right there. You go.
Flash,
How about Adobe Flash?
Shockwave, right?
Yes, cool name, but
Real media player, Real Networks.
Oh, yeah, that's you aging yourself, Rod.
That goes back away. I know it.
And so what it's doing here, again, it's talking to Tanium back there. I think it's making another liar out of me here, but it's going in and asking a question about like, all right, should be looking at all installed applications, and at that point I could be in my Tanium console, I could click a checkbox and say uninstall this app, and blast it'd be gone in 30 seconds from every device that it was still installed on. So that's those are the use cases I think that have the real serious value in those kind of ongoing basis of like looking for things. And it might be something you're just kind of poking around on. It might be something that's related to a 0-day. So if, hey, a row code execution was discovered in Silverlight and I need to actually see where it's installed and then immediately get it out of there without waiting for anything, and then have a lot of utmost confidence in the results of that action. I think that's where Tanium really kind of shines.
Yeah, I'm loving what you guys have, and it sort of it's throwing my brain off a little bit, because even though I've been sort of at Microsoft, you get to see these things. This seems so mature so quickly, considering that GA was just 2 days ago, and this looks like you guys have been doing this for years.
I think there were a lot of man hours, amongst some of our best developers to bring this to market. So yeah, it was a huge investment for us. But
so as part of the program and working for Tanium, is your customers are they super interested in this integration? Are you hearing that?
We are, yeah. It's definitely opening up a lot of doors, and people are asking a lot of questions as they start to go down this path. Now that it's gone GA, it's super simple. So the ability to, basically configure this to work with Tanium. So if you scroll down to the list of third-party plugins, we're right there, and it's so easy to do. You basically just have to tell it where your Tanium instance URL is, and then you have an API token that's going to be assigned to the user that has governs exactly what they can access and what they can do through Copilot. That's the beauty of it. Is it really just, you could have this up and running in 5 minutes if you're a Tanium Cloud customer. Basically it's at a moment's notice. You could turn this on and start to use it. So pretty slick.
Let me ask this question, because go back, close the the sources, our little sources thing there. How's this response? Because I noticed it said did not return any endpoints. You know, it's obvious. There's probably not Silverlight out there. Who knows? But at the same time, how's this response? I think this is important to kind of highlight for people that aren't familiar with Copilot for Security yet. We do have the ability to provide feedback directly because this is AI, right? This is GPT instances, and the only way that it's going to improve is people respond and supply that feedback. Feedback that comes through here when your plugin is involved, do you get part of that or piece of that feedback? Is that part of that partner program, or haven't even thought about that?
I'm not sure if we get that feedback directly or if it gets
It'd be neat
funneled
if you
through.
did,
Yeah.
but, you know.
Hopefully, it would be nice if that was the case, because I think, it's really very mature already, but I
Yeah.
think there's certainly a lot of optimization we can do and how we handle the, the prompts and the skill matching and that sort of thing. I mean, one of the nice things we found was, we have a lot of, we call them sensors in the Tanium world, where it's just like a question you can ask of every endpoint, whether it be running processes or install applications, that kind of thing. We thought, hey, are we going to have to write a skill for every single one of the sensors we want to include there? And that initially that we thought that was the case, and then realized, no, we can effectively do kind of more of a generic skill matching with a whole lot of sensors. So we've got, I think, 150 that are part of that generic matching process. So there's,
Wow.
there's a few things that are going to be a little more strict in the matching area, but a lot of them, basically we call it kind of the real-time data generic sensor matching, is going to be allow you to unlock a lot more capabilities without having to write separate skill for everything we want to do.
Yeah.
Do you find that the Copilot product is improving your product? I mean, making you go about your way different. Meaning, a case in point, maybe I merge, 5 different sensors, because it's the fidelity that we get from this one mega sensor is going to be better than the individual ones, and cut down on amount of back and forth trafficking. Is it making Tanium better at how you go about your core product?
I think it's making us think a little differently in some cases about how we do things and how we can kind of chain things together. Like, one of the things we're bringing to market is an automation capability that allows you to kind of build playbooks that are like, all right, if I'm going to do this, and then this, kind of in a sequence, it's similar to like a prompt book in Copilot for Security. So if I want to have repeatable processes that are doing repeatable things, that's great. And then we're also looking at ways we can incorporate AI into our product separately. So the ability to be like, we have a natural language parser, but it's not the same idea, right, driven by an LLM. So how can we incorporate that into Tanium to say, like, all right, I don't need to be a Tanium expert to just say, like, I want to build this automation sequence. I could just start to write it out in literally that kind of natural language that you would have in Copilot, and then it'll spit out all of the identifications that it has of all the actions that you've called out. So those are things that we're kind of actively exploring and looking to bring to market.
Very cool. Okay. Yeah, I see huge amounts of potential, both in the way that you approach it and just how the thing goes. So I think people are trying to race to the top already. And I'm like in the learning process, because the more people I see do different things with it, it sparks ideas in me. Like, I wonder if you just do it this way and see what the response will come back from it. And that answers the question. I think that you went down this chain because I asked, how does the innovation happen? So that answers the question. These are the things we're learning, and these are the things that we will consider going down the road. Yeah. So, and I'll ask this question, and it's one of those just lowbrow questions here. I assume that if someone's going to consume the Copilot product, they gotta be a Tanium customer. So are you guys co-selling that to say, hey, we're selling Tanium, and you can buy the Tanium CFS package to get them together? Is that the go-to-market strategy, being able to sell those together?
I think so. I mean, I think we want to try to drum up as much interest as possible in what the vision is here. I think we can use either one of us as a hook. Like, if it's already a Tanium customer and they're looking at Copilot for Security, it's very, like I said, it's really easy to turn it on and start to poke around and start to use it and see the value. And if they're not a Tanium customer, then that's a great entry point. If they're starting to use Copilot for Security, and ideally they're using a lot of Microsoft security solutions on top of it, but then we bring our stuff in as a complementary approach, then everybody wins. Or we can be used independently in Copilot. So that's an option for customers that might be using other third-party products. So
Well, I think that's super important to highlight, because again, this is Copilot for Security, the standalone version, which we've seen tonight, is not the integrated version or the other experience, which is in Defender. That's specific to Microsoft stuff. But the standalone version enables this extensibility, enables these plugins. So Tanium, anyone else can develop plugins to tie into, and I think that's the super important piece there. The rest of the month, we're talking to MSPs, and I absolutely see the value, right? That they can utilize Copilot for Security to help secure their customers. But I think Tanium's perspective as an ISV, it's super different, particularly where the opportunities are for your company and how potentially Copilot for Security could enhance, your customers and stuff like that.
And it's just a different take. I'm going to ask this question to be fair, because I'm going to ask this question to the other partners that come on, and this is not, Ed's being one of those dudes questions, right? So one of the things that it took a lot of customers to get their head around was the compute consumption model, right? Are you guys going to advise on that? Because when Sentinel came out, there was a complete, whole initiative on going in and educating customers on a consumption model. They had never done that. They were used to buying SANs, racks, HBAs for connectivity and more network. And then when Sentinel came in and changed the whole way you go about ingestion of logs, I see the same thing with Copilot. Are you going to be able to educate your customers, because the SCUs are being purchased and consumed in their environment to use your product? Is this something that you're educating your customers on to say, hey, you need to buy this many SCUs for this amount of time to get the max value? And let's start with a medium-sized one of your customers, not one of your super large customers who got money to spend, and not the ones who are in and the SCU is probably the cost of your monthly service. Someone in the middle. How are you guys advising on that to get the best value out of your Tanium overlay to this?
I don't think we have enough data yet to actively advise anyone. I think it's going to be a learning experience for probably all of us, to be honest. I mean, I think we understand the SCU model by and large, and I think our current strategy is, start small. Talk to Microsoft if you want to know more about what to expect from a kind of long-term usage standpoint. It's going to depend upon how many people are using Copilot. It's going to depend upon how many prompts you execute on a given day or month. So I think we're all kind of probably in the information gathering stage there. I think we keep it kind of high level in general so far.
Yeah, and I think from our perspective, we're recommending 3, and I think that's going to be kind of across the board, because that was able to accommodate all of the customers during the EAP session, right? During the EAP series. So we know that's kind of the max range, potentially max range value.
Yeah, and that's a fair answer, Mike, because I'm going to ask everybody, and you have to, customers are going to ask you, hey, I'm using your service, how many should I buy? Right? And you're going to go, okay, get 3 or get 6, get 101.
If you can only buy 100, so there you go.
Yeah, so if you got someone tell you about 101, you probably need to go somewhere else shopping, right?
You got money to burn, yeah.
You got money to burn. This is the way I thought the month would start with an actual live Microsoft partner, and I really appreciate this, Mike. This is super informative. I scribbled down a couple of notes. You saw me moving around and doing that, but I'm interested in seeing the juxtaposition on the way you guys operate, not as an MSSP. Different. You enable those type of activities, and the rest of our partners are going to be that are coming on are going to be traditional MSSPs. I want to see their slant on it, but I do believe those who can come in and provide great advisory on consumption of the SEUs to day-to-day operations are going to win. They're going to win, and it won't be across cost savings. It'll be optimization of it, right? And I think customers are going to want you to justify them buying more. They want to buy more, but they don't want to be on the hook for it. They want you to say, yeah, buy more. And then when they see the use out of it, they're going to go, yeah. Just like when we tell customers, Sentinel, you get a trial period, look at the pay as you go for a minute, look at max potential monthly ingestion, and then come back down. Because you're not locked into it. Right? You don't have to buy the same amount once you consume the first units of FCUs to do. You can change, right? So that's pretty cool. Well, I'll let you close out the show, Mike. Is there anything else you want to tell our listeners? We are at time.
No, I'd say, we prominently feature our Microsoft integrations and Copilot in particular on our webpage. So if you want to get more information, we've got a blog post that outlines kind of what the strategy is there. We've got a lot of other cool stuff that we're doing in conjunction with Microsoft with our Sentinel integration, some new stuff that's coming out in a couple of months, the ability to do just-in-time global data ingestion from Tanium into Sentinel would be a pretty cool feature, as well as some optimization enhancements we do to kind of help provide oversight on Defender for Endpoint, some conditional access, device posture attestation rules that we have incorporated into our product and platform, and there's a lot more to come. So we're really just getting started here.
Did you just say just-in-time data ingestion?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
just-in-time data ingestion.
Did you see my ears? My ears, it's like, huh? What? We'll have to talk about that later.
Yeah, I want to talk about that later too. All right. Well, Mike, thanks for coming on to the show. Friend of the show. Second time around, man. It's get better and better. I'm excited to see what you guys are doing. You're taking this very seriously. Somebody's taking it very seriously, right?
We're all in. Absolutely.
You're all in with both. Yeah. To our listeners, our viewers, our supporters, we really appreciate you coming in for our second annual partner month. Great 2 sessions so far. James Key kicking it off from the Microsoft side for the program manager for MSSPs. Thanks to Mike from Tanium for coming on and providing a great overview. One of the best demo sessions. Maybe use AI to do it. No flaws, right? It just happened. He did that. So our next show is coming up. Rod, when is the next show?
The next show is Monday, April 8th, and that's Quorum Cyber.
Quorum Cyber. Our friends over there, Ricky Simpson, Clive, they've been on the show before. We want to hear their approach to using this particular product from Microsoft. And we want everybody to learn. There is no better than someone else. We just want to see how everybody's approaching it, right? And we'll have fun with it. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll see you Wednesday, April
Monday.
9th. Monday. You sure it's Monday?
It's Monday.
Man, you're changing the thing. You confused me.
Again. It's Monday, April 8th.
Oh, yeah, it's Monday, April 8th.
Yeah. All right.
My eyes are old. I can't see that thing, man.
We need to work on that. All right. Talk to you next week.
Talk to you next week, everyone.
Take care, everybody.